Kia ora everyone and welcome back to the podcast. You're with Lilia Tarawa. I'm so excited to bring you an amazing guest from South Australia today. Her name is Candice Hooper and she is a somatic hypnotherapist. She works with women to align their body with the divine or whatever feels like love and goodness to them. And she's here to tell us her story of dealing with debilitating anxiety and how she overcame that, and ultimately how she lives today a full, abundant life in her work as a coach. So I'd love to welcome to the stage, Candice.
Hello, my love. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this chat with you today.
Yeah. I've been really looking forward to talking to you because I think this is a topic that's so important to a lot of people, especially with living in the 21st century today. Mm-hmm. Can you give us a background so the audience can get to know you? Tell us what you do, where you grew up, a little bit of backstory.
Mm-hmm. Well, my name is Candice and I live, it's a little coastal town called Middleton in South Australia. Super quiet, super beautiful. My husband and I are both surfers, so we live one street back from the beach in like a little beach shack, and I have two boys. I've got my puppy here, actually my new puppy, and during COVID actually I took all my work online. So now I work only online. I do run in-person retreats as well as a somatic hypnotherapist. But my journey, when I left school, I went straight kind of into studying the healing wellbeing realms. Studied to become a naturopath, a massage therapist, a yoga teacher, an Ayurvedic practitioner. I was on this real healing journey, and you mentioned my experience with anxiety, and I look back now and I was really just on a search to heal myself of anxiety. Like that's probably what I was doing without consciously knowing that what I was doing. I think a lot of healers, we study these modalities because we're the ones that need them the most. So that's been 25, 30 years now of studying, working on myself and holding space for other women. Currently also I am just felt the call in the last year to work with other space holders because I have been doing this work for so long, and there's so many coaches coming into the world, which I think is so beautiful, but there's a lot of responsibility and a lot of stuff that comes with holding space, especially holding safe space. So I'm just launching at the moment programs, and I call them portals, to support the kind of new space holders in the world. So that's a really exciting path that I'm walking now. That brings me a lot of joy.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about your backstory in terms of why were you experiencing anxiety?
It's really interesting because I had a beautiful childhood. I had everything, loving parents. But if I look back, I can see that it probably gets passed down through generations. There's a lot of fear. I look at anxiety as fear. And so there was fear that kind of came through my grandparents, especially my dad's side. I can see what that came through. And with the work that I've done, we carry generations, cellularly in us and somatically. So I can see this kind of lineage of fear coming through. My grandparents were very fearful and my dad grew up in a very fearful environment. So I feel like it was present within me and it kind of just got activated. And what mine kind of came out as health anxiety mainly. So I was quite paranoid about my health. And then something that kind of triggered it is marijuana. So I was smoking marijuana as a teenager, partying, and it really flicked a switch in me. My brain did not like it. And then panic attacks started in my teens. And at the time, I didn't even know. I thought I was just going crazy. I didn't know. I'd never heard of it, the word anxiety. I'd never understood what panic attacks were. And I didn't really tell anyone. And when I look back, I kind of did go through it by myself. And I remember Googling and I thought it was going to tell me you've lost your mind or whatever. And then when I read about anxiety, I'm like, oh my God, this is what I have. I got to a point actually where I was like, I think I'm going to turn agoraphobic, which means, there's people that can't leave their house. So it was really bad. And I was terrified to go to public places. I was terrified to leave the house. And it was all internal, right? My world was fine. This anxiety, it's an internal experience. But in that moment, I remember kind of having a choice, and it was I'm either going to stay in the house for the rest of my life and live with my parents, or I just had this thought of you got to fly yourself to the other side of the world. You have to, and this is your go. You're either going to be going this way or you're going to be going this way. And so I got the courage. I think I was 20 21. I bought myself a plane ticket. I cried the entire way. Like, I was so terrified. I was so scared. I flew to Hawaii of all places, and I taught surfing there, and I lived there for 3 months, and that began my healing journey. I had already started to study naturopathy and massage. The panic attacks were getting bad, and I was in a bad relationship too. Like, if I, when it's kind of like this storm. So a bad relationship, drugs, anxiety just coming through from my lineage, and I had to make a change. And from that moment, it was just been an incredible journey of traveling and understanding. I feel like I understand the self, I understand anxiety, I understand emotions and energetics so deeply now. It's my purpose now, it feels, to help other people.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful story. It sounded like there were a lot of things contributing to how you were feeling. What I find really interesting is that in my experience growing up, like, there was always a clear reason why this was happening to me, why I was feeling this way. But sometimes you're right, you can look at the world around you and kind of think that the world, technically everything is perfect and how it should be, but then you're still having this inner experience. And I know a lot of kids growing up would be feeling that too. Was there a particular moment where, when you made that decision, this is it, I'm done, I'm leaving? Could you take us back into that moment?
It's hard for me now because I don't have it, and I really want, if you've got anxiety and you're listening to this, please listen till the end, because so many people say you just have to learn to live with anxiety, and you don't. Like, I am free from anxiety. Like, I might feel anxious every now and then, but I do not have anxiety. Like, and that is a miracle. That's like the greatest miracle I've ever experienced in my life, because I remember thinking, when I have anxiety, if someone came to me and said, I'll chop your arms off and get rid of your anxiety, I would have done it. Like, it would sign me up, So people that have really bad anxiety or depression, a mental illness, like, it is so consuming, so debilitating. Like, when I look back at myself, I was just in fear 24/7, but there was nothing wrong. And a lot of people who have anxiety today, right? Like, there is nothing wrong. Like, your external world is okay. What I can see is that I had just such a distrust in life. In saying that, like, the work that I do now, like, I go back and I take people back into either their childhoods or past lives through something I call some subconscious recoding. And so when I started to journey back and have a look, I went back generations, and it was really interesting. My first time I went back to look specifically at fear, I was dropped into like this war zone, and, there's blood and guts, and I was literally about to die. But what I got out of that was, there is necessary fear and then there's unnecessary fear. It allowed me for the first time to kind of be separate from my anxiety. Like, it really showed me that my anxiety it's an illusion, really. It's not true. Like, if someone was holding a gun to my head, yes, fear is necessary and it's there for us. But me walking around my everyday where everything is okay and I'm literally panicked, and mine would focus on my body. So if I'd find a lump or like just a feeling in my hand, so sensation was uncomfortable for me, all of that, like, it would trigger. So I'd just be constantly consumed. So I went on a journey then to, I studied yoga, body work, naturopathy, and all these modalities were really beautiful to soothe my anxiety. Like, I really say that yoga saved my life, like, it really did save my life, because I was able to soothe and I was able to live with anxiety. I was able to live with the fear. But it wasn't until I started to work with my subconscious mind and really more deeply somatically, it was that ability to feel safe, to feel fear, did the fear completely leave my body. So many people do the self-soothing and the yoga and the meditation, which I did for so many years, and it's such a blessing. But until I recoded my subconscious mind and learned to feel emotion, because I studied so much body work and stuff, and I got really fascinated with fascia.
What is the fascia system and how does it work with us in terms of how would we work with it to somatically help ourselves deal with anxiety, overcome it, break through it, and, find a place of calm, peace, and regulation?
Well, the fascia system, I got really obsessed with it when I was doing body work and doing lots of study. So the fascia system is like the connective tissue of the whole body, but it literally wraps around everything, right? It wraps around bones, but it wraps around individual cells, and it's like the web in the body. And I remember my teachers always saying, like, it's 90% water or whatever, or maybe even more, 98% water. And then they would always focus on like the 2%, don't quote me on the numbers, but it's like something like this, the 2% that is like this and this and this, right? But I was always fascinated by the water part. I was like 90% water. I knew at that time, or I was starting to learn, like, water stores memory. You know, water can be changed and hold structure and all of this. And so as I went deeper in my work, like, I'm like, oh, like our emotions are energy and motion, and they get stuck in our fascia, right? They get stuck in our connective tissue in the waters. So I started to do something called myofascial release therapy, which is one of my favorite modalities. And we work on the fascia, and, you know, people would start crying and people would have these emotional releases just by like a couple of hands, you know, on the fascia. And so I would go deeper and deeper into this. And so for me, I believe, this is my belief from the work that I've done on myself and on, you know, hundreds and hundreds of clients over the years, probably thousands, is we can have a fearful experience. And if we don't feel that fear to completion, it gets lodged in the fascia, right? So what I used to say, I used to literally say this: I am full of fear. That's how I felt. I felt at that time when I was younger, I didn't know what I was actually saying, but I was literally full of fear. My fascia was full of fear, right? I had never fully felt fear before. So I hadn't felt it to completion where it can come out of my body. So as I started to learn this, I had to learn to feel fear. And that was really fucking uncomfortable for me because it was my most feared feeling, right? Like, I was full of fear. I was so scared to feel fear. You know, anyone that's had a panic attack, you literally think you're about to die. Like, so it is like a fear of death. But what I've learned and then allowed myself to feel is feel fear to completion. And it's kind of like a cleansing of the body. It doesn't happen all at once. Now I view panic attacks in a very different way. I view panic attacks as the body's beautiful way of, like, its process to help us release fear. Because you get a big surge, right? You get a big surge of fear. But what happens is we panic and we lock it back into the body. We kind of, you know. So that's what I'd done for so many years. So that's why I had so much fear. It would, like, you know, it just never got to come out. And so I actually, probably about 4 years ago now, I hadn't had anxiety for quite a while. And I was reading this text, like a spiritual type of text, and something happened. It triggered the biggest panic attack in me. It was wild. And I felt the energy rising, but what happened, it kind of got stuck in my head, because what I've noticed with fear, it moves up, right? Because you know how, like, if you feel nervous, kind of flutters, it generally doesn't go down in the body. Like, groundedness goes down, but fear kind of moves up. So you want to let it move up and out of your body. This big panic, it got stuck in my head, and no shit, I walked around for 3 months with panic in my head. It was one of the worst 3 months of my life. But now, like, it took me a while to see it as a gift. If I had let that move through me, it would have been the biggest cleanse, but it took 3 months. And you know, if anyone's had this experience, if I didn't know what I knew, my God, like this is where people would step out of life. I think it was such an excruciating time for me. I felt disconnected from the world, but now I literally just had all this fear that literally wanted to come out of me, and it got caught in my head. So I look at mental health very different to a lot of people. I see it as stuff that's got stuck. But once that left through a lot of nature, a lot of presence, a lot of feeling, a lot of actual prayer. Like, I didn't even know what I was praying to, but it was at a point in my life where I was like, I just need help. And then the illusion began to lift and the energy began to leave my body. And now I understand so deeply, and some of, like, spiritual teachers that I look up to, like Eckhart Tolle or something, he's spoken about this, like, when a lot of fear leaves the body, it can make people feel crazy. And if they can't let it leave, right? So which is why we keep that lid on the panic attack. We keep it on because it's a lot for people to feel. It's such a big emotion and it's very scary. But since that moment of letting that all go, I feel like that huge panic attack and that 3 months was me shifting generations of fear. And I was lucky enough to be strong enough, and I have a deep understanding of what was going on, almost to be able to hold that. But like, if anyone's listening to this, we have to feel to release. If you have anxiety, you have fear trapped in the body. I really believe this, in your fascia. And unfortunately, I've tried many other ways to try and get it out. But feeling it is a part of the process, like feeling it move through the body. And so just knowing that you're safe to feel emotion. But my son, I saw this in action. My son, he can get a bit of anxiety. Like I can see in him, and because I had it when he was younger, so he's probably picked that up from me a bit. But he went to have his first panic attack ever about 3 years ago. And it was like, I was like, I'm born for this moment. I feel like all my study, all my everything was for this moment to help him. And so I got to practice everything. I took him straight outside on the grass. We laid down on the grass. And I just said, instead of like trying to soothe him, right, I was like, this fear is coming out of his body. I just held him and I said, just breathe and just feel it. Even though you think you're going to die in this moment, I know this. Just breathe, I'm here. And it was one of the most, I feel like crying even just thinking about it. Sorry.
It's okay.
One of the most beautiful experiences of my life. I felt like, my whole life was for that moment. If I hadn't done my own work, normally when someone gets a panic attack, they go on to have many others because they become really scared of them. Whereas my son's like never had one since because he feels safe with it, right? Like, and I talked to him, I kept him home that day. We went literally into nature all day. And I just spoke with him like, that was energy leaving your body. That was fear. And like, you did it. That's all it is. Like you held that emotion, you held that energy. It never gets worse than that. Like you can do it. And so I feel like when someone has a panic attack, they stuff it back down and then we become fearful of it again. And it literally controls your life. Whereas I was able to witness being with my son to feel it to completion, even though it was so scary. He thought he was going to die. He's no longer scared of it because he was able to feel it. So it's funny how when we do this work, especially as healers, like, I've helped thousands of clients, but that moment with my son was like, oh, this is what it's all about. This is why I went through everything I went through.
Yeah. It sounds like there was sort of two more recent pivotal moments for you. One with your big panic attack where you feel like it got stuck in your body. And then the experience with your son where you're sitting with him and holding his hand through his experience, like dealing with his emotion and learning emotional regulation. I'm really curious, like when you were saying that your fear got trapped in your body during that period of time, what was it that ultimately allowed you to break through that? Because you're walking around holding that. How did you release it? When did you release it? Because I know people will be listening to this going, but then how does she do it?
Yeah, because I know when I speak to people, I didn't share this story for so long, interesting, like that shame, right? People would, and I don't want to freak people out either, but the more I share it, people that makes me feel actually really safe and like hearing that story. So it was just kind of a process, I think. It was lots of time in nature, like just gave myself so much space and so much grace. And I still remember this moment, like I was saying prayer. It's kind of like I was just asking like the simplest thing, and I offer this to so many of my clients when they're in a dark space. Just give me a better feeling thought. Thoughts create the anxiety, right? And then the stuck emotions. So that's literally, I just wanted a bit of relief. That's all. Like I wasn't asking for it. It was just like, just give me a better feeling thought. And so that would just be my prayer, right? Just give me a better feeling thought. And the opposite of fear is love. There was something I was saying about love, like it was like a mantra, like only love is real or something. Like it was just something I had on repeat. And I still remember walking along the beach one morning and I was like, just give me a better feeling thought. And I looked up and there was a rainbow. And I just felt this flood of peace. And I was just like, it's like I just had clarity. It's like it just left my body, the fear, for a moment. And it was just like, fear is an illusion. Look around. It's not real in a sense. It's not real. Like no one's attacking you. And it was just like, it's just energy. That's all it is. It's just an energy. It's just a frequency. And from that moment, and the beauty of it is because I see it as it was the biggest cellular purge of fear that I could have possibly had.
You had this epiphany moment where you were like this flood of peace and you had this connection to something other than your fear.
Other than my fear for once in 3 months. Like it was so, oh my God, it was like the light that I needed. And you always look back and you see things happening for a reason. Every year, my husband and I and my kids would walk down the beach every New Year's and we had this little ritual. We'd pick up a rock and we'd throw it into the ocean. It was something that we're letting go for the year. Every year I was like, fear, please leave me, fear, like every year. So, I was asking, I'm such a believer that if you ask, you will receive. And so I've been asking for years, right? Free me from fear, free me from fear, free me from fear. And so I see it now as such a blessing. Like, it was like, here you go. You're going to read this thing and you're going to have this opportunity to literally like free yourself from fear. I didn't know what was going on though, right? So it took me 3 months to like let it out. Since that moment, so since starting with the subconscious, being able to see fear from a different perspective, not so much in the fear, but what is fear, seeing it from a different perspective, and then having that experience of literally cellular excuse me with my language, cellular cleansing, like purging it from my fascia and my cells, it was the best thing that I've ever experienced now, because even though it was the worst experience of my life, because I literally don't have anxiety anymore. It's foreign to me to think about what that used to feel like, and that was the majority of my life, right? It was so almost unbearable because it's gone. And so that's why I call myself a somatic hypnotherapist, because we have to do it in the mind, in the subconscious, like the beliefs, right? So, and we have to release it from the fascia in the body. And when you combine those two, like for someone who's listening, it might not be anxiety, but I have women, they're full of guilt, or they're full of shame, or they're full of lack. Lack is a really big one, or they're full of unworthiness. They're the main ones that I see with women. And so when we kind of recode the subconscious, so for me, there was definitely like a fear of life, a fear of the flow of life, a fear of death. Whereas now, like, I am so at peace with death. I am so at peace. I trust that life's got me, and I can surrender so easily to it. I trust that I'm worthy. I've had to recode those patterns. There's a Kabbalah technique. So it's like kind of Jewish, but it's not really. It's like some of the older spiritual traditions. So they say like the Bible and religion kind of sprung forth from that, but like distorted it. So I've found a lot of resonance with their teachings from what I've just had to find myself. But they have this technique and I love it so much. It's called Pause, What a Pleasure. And so when this is something that anyone can use, say you've got anxiety and you're wanting to release the fear, you're wanting to heal your anxiety. Anytime that you have an experience that triggers the anxiety, you can say pause, like literally go, okay, pause. And then you say, what a pleasure. The pleasure is, this is an opportunity for me to release some more fear, right? Because when we feel something, it comes out of the body. So I feel like we're given opportunities all the time, right? We might think something's going wrong, but it's not like me when I read that text, I thought something had gone horribly wrong. Like my life is completely messed up. Like I found it hard to parent. I found so many things. But now that I understand this, that was an opportunity. If I had known what I know now, like it was the most incredible opportunity to release a lot of fear. And so it's such a powerful technique for me, and we can do it with anything. If something happens and you feel guilt, pause, like literally, where is the guilt? Like sensation, feel it. And you'll watch it kind of move through the body. It wants to leave, right? It's energy and it's emotion. It's just been trapped. And the reason why some people have fear, some people have guilt, is because whether this life or a past life, it just wasn't felt to completion. And so it's in the fascia, like it's like I always say, like you can be driving and some people have excessive road rage. Like, someone will cut them off and they're like, oh, because they have like anger stuck in them, right? Whereas the other person who doesn't could have that same experience, but they don't have an angry reaction, is because they don't actually have anger stuck in their body. So all of those are opportunities. If you don't react and you pause and you let yourself feel it, it's how we cleanse it somatically from the body. And it's so simple, yet one of the most powerful things I use and that my clients use.
Yeah, I love that. It's like cellular intelligence in the way you're communicating with your body, for emotional intelligence too, to let yourself like feel the emotion through to its peak and then let it subside, and then it's processed and it's not stored anymore, because it's you're opening the door and you're saying, okay, bye, see ya. Yeah. But if you shut the door and you're like, no, and you need to control the emotion. And I find this really interesting because I grew up in an environment where I couldn't express my emotions. There was no emotional regulation taught to children. The only emotion, it was only like, sit down, be quiet, you can't cry. Like my grandfather always used to say, children should be seen and not heard. And so there was no room for me as a little girl to express any of this. So everything in my world like became internalized. And then all the messaging that I was receiving, it became about me. And as I got a bit older and I noticed this, I was noticing well, where does my body like store these things in my neck and my hips
Yeah.
and my feet? And learning to somatically like work with my body was like a really beautiful modality for me to be able to release a lot of, because I was raised in a very, as you know, fear-based environment. So I love it when you're talking about stopping and pausing, allowing that emotional regulation to happen. I think the really powerful piece is when you say there's a trading of the emotion. So you have an emotion which is heavy, which is like a lower frequency emotion, and then you're going, I'm going to shift that now into a more elevated, higher frequency emotion by looking at it and practicing gratitude for what this emotion and the presence of it here is giving me. When you say the word opportunity, I'm just thinking gratitude, you know,
100%.
because you can't feel that gratitude and then still feel all the fear and stress at the same time. So you're shifting yourself from one emotion to the other, and that's really powerful.
Yeah, and I
really love that.
Yeah, and I think it's, if we look at emotions like layers, what I've come to know, and, you know, I had to know this in myself first, but now I get it confirmed by working with so many people, right? I feel the greatest honor that I've got to sit with women for 25 years very deeply, because I know some truths about humanity and about life, like, because there's these common things for everyone, right? So at the core of everyone is love. And I know this so deeply and so surely because I have worked with the core of hundreds, if not thousands of women. So when the emotion leaves, it's not so much that it transfers into love. Love's there. And so it's like you let the fear or the guilt move, and what's left because of who you are is love. When we have traumas on top of us, and, you know, I still believe that love is at the core of everyone. For some people, there's just so much on top, right? There's so much on top, anger, guilt, shame, and that's what they're full of it, right? So it reacts, and especially like power, you know, like if they've been shamed so much when they were younger or something, it's like power becomes the thing that they want. And so it's what I notice, and I have a program called The Shift where I walk women through this. From my work, I've realized, you know, there's these main ones that I've witnessed in everyone, and that is fear, that is guilt, that is shame, that is lack, and that is unworthiness. And so we go through them a month at a time, and we do the recoding, and then they spend an entire month hyper focused on that emotion, and they get opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to pause, somatically release, pause, somatically release. And women go through this 6-month journey, and it's like miraculous. Like, it just brings me to tears all the time, because women who were like me, it might not be fear, but it was guilt or whatever, and it's suffocating them, and they're constantly people pleasing, constantly exhausted. You know, I have many women come to me like they're wanting to leave this world because their emotions are so heavy. And as we peel them off, like, it's just the most beautiful thing. It's like a butterfly. Suddenly, when you are aligned with, so the opposite of fear is love, the opposite of lack is abundance, the opposite of unworthiness is worthy, the opposite of guilt and shame, I see it as seen, like that, you know, we've talked about that, like that feeling of being seen, and kind of choice, sovereignty. But it's a beautiful transformation when we peel these layers off, what is underneath. And that's why I've come to call it just recently, like, you come into alignment with the divine, and that means something different to everyone. But to me, it's like the source of consciousness, the source of the plants, the source of the trees is love, and it's abundant and it's worthy. And so when we peel these layers off, that can shine through, right? It's an energy that just can come through us because we're in alignment with it, and we're not blocking it with our guilt or our unworthiness or our fear. And then it's like, yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, as what's kind of coming to me as you're saying this is because, you know, sometimes when you're stuck in like, I have to fix this, I'm feeling uncomfortable and horrible, and I'm having anxiety, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, all these things, but like, I have to do something to get out of this. I have to do more. It feels like in so much of what you're saying, it's about actually you have to do so much less, and you have to strip it back to only what is the most important. And so it's not about finding more things and like even more modalities and that work for us. It's about just coming back to who we are, and like just letting go of everything that's not useful to us, because there's so much messaging from society about how we should be and what our role is. And what's okay and what's not okay. And we kind of stack or create all these layers of ourselves. And sometimes that's not even us. So we're living this like fragmented version of ourselves.
100%.
And what I'm hearing from you is like, you're just going back to, you know, almost who you are when you came out of the womb, when you were like the most pure form. Yeah.
And it's so joyful. Like when I first started like my yoga studies and stuff, there was like such a seriousness like to me and to that world. And like, I don't even really say that I teach yoga anymore. I just call it movement. I've kind of, there's parts of yoga I don't really connect with and anymore. And, you know, I even had to break out of like a mental structure of that, like, which is really fascinating. It's so joyous. Like my life is so joyous. Like I laugh the majority of my day, right? Like, because when you are love, when you are abundant, like, and when I say abundant, I mean, I feel so deeply supported because I felt so unsafe before, right? I felt so unsafe, which is what anxiety is. And now, like, I feel so deeply supported. Like, money comes to me, like, with so much ease. And my relationship with my husband just gets deeper and deeper every moment, really, because before I call them codes, you know, sublimiting beliefs. I just call them codes, but I'm like, I had unlovable codes. It's almost like if you hold the codes that you're unlovable, and a lot of this you don't know you have, right? Like I didn't know I held this code until I started to look at it. Okay, what's my life reflecting back to me and where am I reacting? Okay, when my husband says this thing, I get defensive and then it's like the question, okay, what am I making that mean about me? Okay, I'm making it mean that I'm unlovable, right? You know, when you start to go into that. And so as I healed that code, I actually allowed him to love me. I thought that he wasn't loving me. It was that I held a code that I'm unlovable. So no matter what he did, it would come through that filter for me. So as I've healed that code, like we just get closer and closer. I see so many women. This is why I'm so passionate about unlocking so many women's minds and their bodies, because we can chase the wrong things. I call it wild success, what I bring to my clients, because it's out of the box. Everyone's kind of like in the zoo chasing this one idea of success, but wild success is like the zebra who's just running in the Sahara. Doesn't give a flip what anyone else is doing, right? And it's not trying to prove itself. So like wild success, there was a moment when I really sat with what is success for me. Ask yourself this question. It was so liberating for me. I didn't realize that my idea of success was a 9-to-5 job in the city, wearing corporate clothes, doing shit you hate. Like, so that was my idea of success. And when I saw that, I was like, no wonder I could never feel successful. No wonder I didn't even try to be successful, because that is something I really don't want. And so I had to create my own definition of success. And when I did that, like instantly I'm like, I am so successful. I am so successful. Whereas before I just thought, I'm not successful. I'll never be successful. There was this like piece, right? But then I was like looking around and I'm like, this is my definition of success. And then I can tweak it. So I think it's such a powerful thing. It's like what you've been saying. You had to deconstruct and question things. You know, even though I didn't grow up in a cult, I grew up in a beautiful home. There's still so much deconstruction that we have to do to be able to live that life that what I say is our soul desires, right? Like, because we can catch the wrong train and go the wrong direction for so long. And then I think that's why so many billionaires and millionaires, they're miserable, because they've just caught the wrong train. They got caught up in success this way. Whereas it's like, for me, success is being able to spend as much time with my family as I can. And I'm so blessed. Like I get to pick them up from school, drop them at school, keep them home from school, travel with them and make them good food and help women. Like my definition is so different.
Yeah, it's almost like the ruler against which we're measuring ourselves is like clearly defining that for yourself and what your vision of that looks like, rather than just the default one that you've been given, that society says you are successful if you XYZ. And what you did is you said, well, I have this version of success, which I think looks like success, but now I'm going to totally redefine that and live life on my terms. And then what does that look like? And now I will only be asking myself, do I align with this version of what's truly of value to me? And then that is how you're tapping into your version of wealth. Because what makes you feel rich, what makes you feel abundant, what makes you like attract money to you it's the strategy and it's learning about money, and it is, learning financial skills, but also it's the money mindset. So I was curious for you, what were the money mindsets that in those beliefs that you personally recoded when you first really started to experience success in your business?
So for me, one of the biggest ones was there's this beautiful, I don't know if you've experienced it. Have you ever done a parts integration?
Yeah.
So it's one of my favorite. I call it just an integration ceremony now, and I have my own take on it. But it was an integration ceremony. I can't remember exactly what it was for, but in that moment, I saw my dad had a stroke at the height of his career. And so I was like in my early teens, maybe 12 or something. And I went back to that moment and I saw, our subconscious mind is prime directive is to keep us safe. And you can't outrun it. You can't outfight it. And you don't even know what's in there until you go looking, right? And so I saw that I had then downloaded the codes that success equals literally death. So for me, it wasn't that I was happy. Like I had a yoga studio and it was great, but like there wasn't any drive. I had no ambition really. Like I was just like floating along. This is good. Not much money, like barely any money, right? Like barely any money. And did that. And it was like, literally, I think it was only like a month later, I went on to earn what I used to earn in a whole year and a month, because it was so what? And it's like all of a sudden I was safe with success. I also had redefined my idea of success. So I was showing up feeling with successful energy, right? Like I am successful, which is very different to like, I never want success. I hate success. I hated money too. I'm like, money to me, I had the equation, money equals sacrifice. And I just wasn't willing to sacrifice for money, So as I think a lot of space holders, healers, all of us, we've got that ingrained in us. So I had so many codes. So of course I'm not going to have money because I believed it had to come through sacrifice and I wasn't willing to sacrifice. So as soon as these things like, oh, money can come to me with ease, maybe I do want money, if it comes easily and if I can enjoy it. And so that kind of started to unlock. And then it's been like a process as I unlock and recode different things for myself that more money comes. And then what I've noticed too is like when the fear left is when my income then really stabilized as well. So I'd have some big money influxes and stuff like that, but it was still kind of like that. And as my nervous system and fear left, like it just becomes really, it's much more consistent because I just know that it comes. So there's like this real stabilization of money. But now I like I can openly say I love money. I love money so much and I'm so thankful for it. And the more money I have, like literally, like it just makes me such a better person. I can be much more generous. One of my sons plays so much sport and, it costs a fair bit of money and we have to drive him everywhere. And I just feel so thankful that I don't even have to make a decision around that about like, do we have enough? I just feel so blessed that money doesn't come into our decision making. And my other son, there's something here called Sapsaza, which you play sport in your school. He's like, oh, Mum, I'm just going to try out for everything. But then he says, but it's $100 like every time. And I was like, it doesn't matter. Like, this is what we love to spend our money on. And me 5 years ago, that was not the case. It was like, oh, there's that gripping every time. Where are we going to get it from? I have to say no to you, or I have to say no to myself, as most mothers do. And there's stress between me and my husband. There was like all of that stuff, whereas now it's not there. And so this is something that I'm really passionate about, especially with space holders. When I say space holders, maybe they're body workers or they're naturopaths or anyone that holds transformation for another person. Those people, they have such big hearts and they're so just in service to humanity. They're the people that I want to have so much money because they're going to do so much good with it. So I'm really passionate. I feel like we're in a bit of a flip in the world, right, of like those women now holding the money, which is how we can change the world.
If I'm listening to this and I'm struggling with money and I'm saying, I feel like I have money blocks, like there's never enough. I'm feeling like in a really like scarcity mindset. What sort of guidance or wisdom would you be giving to me if I'm coming to you and I'm saying, hey, when I think about money, I feel very stressed. I feel very tight. What advice would you give me?
I would say first, look at your relationship with money. So just like if money was a person, just be curious, and then ask yourself, would you hang around you? Like, so for me, I was like, I hate money. Like, I don't want to sacrifice for money. Like if that was a person, I hate you. I'm not going to do anything for you. Like the person's going to be like, okay, I'm not going to hang around, right? Like, so look at your relationship with money first. Like, that's why I'm like, I love, and I genuinely love money, and that might trigger people, but I do. Like, it's a beautiful means, right? So look at your relationship first. And you can go a bit deep if you want to look at your parents' relationship with money. So like my parents, they had money, but it was really interesting. They had scarcity. So there was always budgeting and you always bought the cheap thing. There was never enough and all of that. And so like for me, that pause or the pleasure comes up a lot for me in I notice my body just reaching for the cheapest option. And so if you're that person who's in lack, you're probably always reaching for the cheapest option, right? So you can start with the smallest thing to just kind of expand your body's safety to choose, like, because you think that you want to wait for the money to choose the thing, but you choosing it brings the money. It was about a year ago, but it was so clear in my mind. And I was feeling lack, right? Even though I've cleared this, sometimes you feel anxious, sometimes you feel angry, like emotions still come up. And I just ran into the supermarket. We just needed butter. And there was 2 butters sitting there. One was like the organic epic one, the one I wanted, and the other one was the cheap one, right? There's like $4 difference. There's not even that much. All of my lack wanted me to reach for the cheap butter, right? Like I could feel it. It's like just reach for the cheap butter, but I'm like, I don't want the cheap butter. And so if anyone's struggling with money, use moments like that, like really small moments to practice choice of going against lack, because it's just a frequency and it's just a program. So in that moment, I just consciously had to choose the more expensive butter. And so just start with like really small things like that. And then you'll notice that you didn't go bankrupt, that like things didn't happen. And then you start to feel safer and safer. You start to choose more. The choosing, the worthiness, the abundance comes first. And then as you expand, in Kabbalah, they call it you're expanding your vessel to hold more, then more can flow into your existence.
How do you balance letting go of scarcity and shifting into a wealth mindset with fiscal responsibility? Because you say, you buy the thing that you want that's more expensive because you don't want to live with a scarcity mindset. But budgets are real and there needs to be a balance. And in business, we use budgets because they help us understand where we're at with money, how much we're bringing in and how much is going out. And it just gives us a picture. So how would you manage that when you say, okay, you're stepping into wealth, but it needs to feel safe enough that the risk isn't so extreme that you are just bankrupting yourself?
Yeah. And I think there's like I'm talking from a very privileged place as well, right? Like I have a husband but I also want to say he's come and gone from work as well. So I do have a partner in this. Like if you're single, there's all these different things. There's so many things that come into play with this, and it's easier for others to stay in an abundance mindset. So I'd say if you are having to budget and you are having to look at things, I would do some kind of practice before you look at your finances. So lots of people, when they're in lack, right, and they're in stress, they're like constantly looking at the bills piling up. There's stress everywhere around them, right? Because like I said before, if you're full of lack, like everything's going to trigger lack. Like I had a client once and she's like, you know how when you drive into the driveway and you see some weeds and you just feel so poor? And I'm like, no, like I don't feel that. You're feeling that because you have lack. So having some kind of practice where you consciously activate abundance in your life, and first thing in the morning, like my morning is so sacred, it's non-negotiable to me, because you start your day. So like if you wake up, check your phone, look at your bank account, like it's really hard to change that. You almost have to just wait until the next day. So start your day with some kind of abundance. If you are really struggling right now, every morning, you can't afford not to wake up and practice gratitude. Like you can't afford not to do it. It will change your life because you're activating a frequency. You're seeing what you have and you have to go first. Like everyone's waiting for the money to come to feel abundant, and it doesn't work like that. Like it really doesn't work like that. You have to see what you have. Like I've had so many clients, some of them have nothing and they can switch to starting to see what they have, and things can really change for them, right? Some have everything and they still don't even see it. And it's one shift in perspective. Even I take my life for granted so much, right? And when I open my eyes, like it brings me to tears. I'm like, I have so much. If you have someone that loves you, you have a roof over your head, like literally you are in the top 10% of the whole world. Like you have running water when you turn your tap on. And I know if someone's listening, they're like, yeah, but I don't have this. It's like, you can stay in that victim mindset you can, but just try gratitude, and don't try it once, try it for 21 days and you'll start to feel a little better. And everything's frequency. We work on the law of attraction in the world. Like as you start to feel better and abundant, you're going to see opportunities. I had a client once and she worked in like an environment with in an office. And was around worthiness. We're working on her worthiness, and worthiness ties in a lot with abundance. You have to kind of feel worthy to receive. Lots of women are not very good at receiving. And after about a week, she like messaged me and she's like, I just found 6 gifts in her office. 6 gifts. Some had been sitting there for months. She could not see them. They could not come into her reality. They were in her office. People have been placing them, like it was so random. But this is what it's like, right? Until she opened the door to receive, she couldn't even see the gifts there. And she was like blown away. And I'm like, I love this story so much because this is what it is. Like, if you're walking around saying life's hard, I don't have enough, there's never enough, the government, it's because of interest rates, whatever, so be it. That your wish is my command, right? If you start to see what you have, opportunities will come to you. I've been doing this work for so long, like they come, I've seen it over and over again, but you have to go first and you have to drop some stories that are really familiar to you. Lots of people love to connect through their struggle, love to connect through things being hard. And I get it, right? Like, I get it. But if you want more, you have to watch your words and you have to disengage from those conversations. And I promise you it's worth it. I promise you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the story that we tell ourselves. And I'm such a big advocate for this, is what is true is what you choose to believe. Which is why I find religion super interesting, because if someone believes their religion is true, then it is true to them.
Yep.
And if someone doesn't believe the same thing is true, then it's not true to them.
Totally.
And in the same way, I've applied that to my life in terms of, well, if I believe that this is the situation that I'm in and this is the story that I'm telling about my situation to myself, then that's what's going to be real for me. But at any point, and so I love it that you said about the victim mindset, is I've always believed that I am the master of my destiny and that I get to choose at any point in my life what my mind will focus on and the story that I'm going to tell myself about something. You have the conscious stories that you tell and you have the subconscious stories that you tell. And it sounds like you're working a lot with the conscious, but then you're pulling down into that subconscious realm and you're saying, well, these are the beliefs that are truly impacting you, the ones that you're not even aware of yet. But slowly as you go about your life, you can begin to shift and change those, bring them up into your awareness, and then start to play with them and shift them and move them, as you say, the shift. And that's what changes you as a person and lets you move towards where you want to go. Because people are only listening to this episode if they're like, I'm stuck somewhere and I want to go somewhere else. And so the whole idea of you being here to share your wisdom is to go, okay, well, if I listen to this episode, if I listen to Candice's wisdom, she's going to help me shift from somewhere I don't want to be to somewhere I want to be. But the interesting part is that I have to look at where I am and practice love for that.
100%.
Where I am right now.
Yeah.
I can't just try to get away from it or try to run away from it.
Yeah, we wish we could.
Because it's uncomfortable. We want to run away from pain.
Exactly. And I say this to my community, like I have this analogy of like, you can't sprinkle glitter on shit. Like it still smells and you still don't shit, you know? Like, so you have to clean the shit up. But it's easier than you think. Like, I think the first step into doing this work, and, you know, me full of fear, I was scared of this work, but the fear's on the outside. Like, you know, like as soon as you step in, because love is at your core, like the fear's on the outside, you know, it's the surface levels. So if you're going deep into yourself, you're going to reach love eventually. And there's no greater feeling, you know, especially talking from as someone who was full of fear, panic attacks all the time, like there is no greater feeling. Like I feel like, you know, than not having that stuff inside of you, being connected to love, feeling supported, trusting the flow of life. Like I feel like I won $1 billion, right? Because it's so good. And I just want this for everyone, this feeling. And I think we're so afraid to feel, so we numb and, you know, But if you just knew, like, something that's helpful too is to know that an emotion only lasts 16 seconds. But what keeps it in the body is the stories we tell, right? So it's so powerful to know that, and to know that you will never be stuck in a state forever. So when I had fear, you know, it was my story that kept it there. And it's like, whenever you're going through something, no matter how big it feels, it will always pass. It will always pass. I've never met anyone that's still angry 10 years later, every moment of every day, right? It's like, if emotions are energy, emotion, they always want to move if we let them move. And then you come back into your natural harmonious state. I love what you said. It is the stories we tell ourselves, and you can choose to be a victim. And, you know, lots of women will come into my world at the beginning and they love that story, right? They don't love it, but it's familiar. So they keep telling it. So you can be in that story if you want. Like, go ahead, but you're fucking miserable.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good.
Yeah. If anyone's listening to this and they're struggling with anxiety, what would be one piece of wisdom that you would share with them?
I would say practice with that pause, what a pleasure. Just practice with that pause, what a pleasure. And just know that no one's ever died from panic. Like, you're not going to die. And just practice feeling it. Just practice feeling it. You probably notice that you avoid it. You're afraid of having another panic attack. We become fearful of fear. Lots of people who are holding space for others, we have been to the depths of darkness. And so when you go to the depths of darkness and you come back, there's a stability in someone that you can then lean on. So for me, you know, I've run retreats and I've had women literally tell me that they want to end their life right here, right now. I can sit there with them and I'm like, let's go there right now. Like, let's not avoid this. We're here, we're going. So find someone, if it's me or if it's someone else, that has like a depth to them where you feel really safe with them, because you'll be able to undo your fear, because it can be a very uncomfortable process. And they're kind of like your anchor in the storm as you kind of, you know, like you were saying, when you discombobulated and distracted yourself, to have someone who is an anchor, and I feel very blessed to be that person for a lot of people, is, yeah, it's like you have someone to come back to shore. If you're doing it by yourself, it can feel a bit like me that 3 months. But if someone's there, it's like an energy frequency, and you kind of come back to them much quicker, because they're like, they know what's going on.
What is a book that you would recommend our audience listen to or read on this topic?
I have got a few that I love so much. So if anyone hasn't heard of Louise Hay, she's amazing, and she's got a book called You Can Heal Your Life. She passed away a fair few years ago. Her book, I've had it forever and I love it so much. Like, You Can Heal Your Life, Louise Hay. Anything that's going to soothe you, right? Like, I think if you've got anxiety, you need a soothing thing. If anyone hasn't heard of Anita Moorjani, so she's got a book called Dying to Be Me. She literally died and came back, and her story is amazing. So she helps a lot of people if you're sick or mental illness, all of that. Like, I love her story, is amazing. Louise Hay, Anita Moorjani. There's another beautiful book. There is a bit of, is it religion? There's a bit of stuff that I don't resonate with it, but the message beneath, and it's called A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. That's a really beautiful book as well. But those 3 books, like, anything with Louise Hay, seriously, like anything that's just going to soothe you into trusting the flow of life, Louise Hay is that person. Anita Moorjani is that person. They have been incredible teachers of mine. If you've got anxiety, it's like, nothing's going wrong here. Everything's okay. That's what you want to hear. That's what you want washed over you until it becomes your truth. And those 2 teachers, Louise Hay and Anita Moorjani, they've done that for me.
Amazing. Love that. 3 great recommendations. Thank you so much for coming on, and for everyone listening, we're really, really grateful for your time and for sharing your wisdom with us and those beautiful nuggets. I'll link all of Candice's handles in the show notes so you can go follow her there. If you're not following along with the show, I would love you to hit the follow button. It really helps to grow the show and get this message out here. If you have any questions at all, you can jump into the show notes. There's an email, media@liliatarawa.com, which you can write any of your questions into and we can answer them. Other than that, thank you so much for having come along with us on this journey. And a big thank you again to Candice for sharing so vulnerably and openly with all of us.
Thank you for having me. It was an epic conversation. I could talk about this stuff all day.